So moving forward, we have an insightful panel discussion, the very first panel discussion on the topic, the rise of cybersecurity startups, innovations and disruptions. To moderate this panel discussion, we have moderator Mr. Atul Gupta, Head Digital Trust from KPMG. And the esteemed panelists we have on board as Prasanna Lohar, CEO from Blockstack, Pawan Chawla, CISO and DPO from Tata AIA Life, Bithal Bharadwaj, Group CISO from GMR Group, Shomiron Gupta, founder and CEO, DNIF Hypercloud, Rajiv Chetwani, Director CISO from ISRO.
Over to the esteemed panelists.
Thank you so much and hope I'm audible. Thank you, fellow panelists, for joining in today, and CyberFrat for putting this panel right up ahead. So topical and so much relevant from the session that we just had. The country and the world has seen many events at this point of time, but two distinct events which I wanted to start off was the budget, which happened in the country, and the way the government came across, the minister came across, clearly establishing the country to move forward towards a Viksit Bharat, which is powered by a credible and a very powerful digital India story, which is expected to get to an economy of $1 trillion just about in a year's time from where we are at this moment. But what does this bring? This brings upon to the second event, which the world faced upon again not too long ago, where we realized the power of interconnectivity which comes with the digital technology. And it's great. It's very seamless till it works best. But when it doesn't work or something goes wrong, it can bring the world down in a crazy amount of time, which we have never imagined before. And that's where the heroes, which are being celebrated today by CyberFrat, really come into action of making sure that we don't come across those days more often in our lives than it becoming some of those events which could be talked upon. Well, there is a massive shift which we have seen happening at this point of time. And today with the panel we have got, where we got distinguished CISOs who've been protecting cybersecurity threats coming across to larger enterprises, as well as in their own ways contributing to the societies. And we've got a couple of panelists who are representing the cybersecurity startups who are going to bring in their innovative portion and how they are keeping themselves ahead of time to thwart the challenge which the world is facing upon. I'm sure this is going to be an exciting panel. But being the only consultant on this panel today, it will be unfair for me not to give some opening thoughts around it and bring an economic perspective, because an economic perspective is why the entire hustle really comes across. And that's what we're getting to see in the world of cyber at this point of time. There is a massive economic activity. If one were just to look upon from an India perspective, in the past, recent past, we started talking upon a massive incident which happened. We all are aware, which was the ransomware incident, which really brought in cyber at a very different stage in the country. From there to today, when we look upon, it's assumed or it's expected that the overall cyber business being delivered by country India is tune of $5 to $6 billion. That's quite a significant amount. This covers upon the services, this covers upon the products, and this also covers upon the startup ecosystem that's come. And the reason I insisted on startup ecosystem is because the very recent report tells us that there has been healthy investments coming in from venture funds to the tune of $150 to $160 million for cyber startups happening in India. Now that's quite incredible, and that's very, very inspirational as well. When there is an economic activity happening, there are three things which generally happen. Well, the first one I talked already, there's money which comes around, there's investment which comes around, and that triggers off the second wave, which is the wave of innovation, wave of doing things in a new ways. And the third one, it provides an opportunity to look back at things and challenge the normal and create new titans and create new stars, which is what today we are celebrating all hundreds who have been recognized upon by CyberFrat platform. Well, given this background, I think we have a unique opportunity to go much deeper today on the cyber startup ecosystem. And I will start upon the panel now with that overview to bring in a perspective from the cyber heroes who are defending, protecting, reacting, and responding to cyber risk on a daily basis, which are the esteemed CISOs of reputed organizations who are dealing with it. Maybe I'll start off from there bringing the three CISOs who are on the call today to talk upon their perspectives on how are they seeing startups becoming an very important element of their entire strategy. And how are they looking at it? Whether they're looking at it as disruptors or they're looking at it as a value creators. So maybe I'll start off with Bithal. Bithal, if you would want to come in and share your perspectives, and then we can go to Rajiv and Pawan to get your initial thoughts.
Sure. Hi, Atul. I hope I'm visible and audible. Wonderful. All right. Now, we heard a comment in the morning, someone saying that, well, Israel has a booming startup economy going on there. But if you put things in perspective, India as a nation has a very similar considerations of friendly neighbors, right? It's a time when we should go for a self-reliance when it comes to software security products. Now, as a CISO, when I go out to look at any technology to be procured, I don't have too many options out there. And fundamentally, what we have seen is a lot of Western products which are being used by the entire industry, not just in India, but elsewhere as well, usually are driven by the sales team on the ground, which means as a particular sector or as a particular organization, I want to drive certain innovations or certain enhancements which are aligned to the need of the specific organization. We have a very, very limited influence over shaping that product to our needs. Now, it's very important that we as an industry should promote the startups in India. In fact, as a GMR, I spearhead a program called as ASSIGN. Now, ASSIGN stands for Accelerating Sectoral Security Innovation by GMR for the Nation. And under the umbrella of this program, we identify certain startups and we look beyond the customer and the vendor relationships. We bring these companies under our wings. We essentially give them 3-4 essential things to these organizations. Number one being, we try to give them enough adequate feedback aligned to what the organization need are, so that they are able to shape the products to what we really require. Now let's understand, a lot of startups really start with a bright idea by the founder, right? And the idea, is just a starting point. Idea has to evolve. So we play that crucial role in the evolution of the idea. We also, at a certain point in time, when we think the product is now ready, we also adopt it. So we become essentially the very first customer as well. Because unless you have, when the startup has a big name as a customer, they really cannot go out and start winning more contracts out in the market. So ASSIGN from a GMR standpoint, Atul, is a step towards promoting the cybersecurity startup products in India. We've had some successful stories so far. I saw, in fact, 2 of those founders were part of this list as well. So a lot of great work is happening. I think the organization like ours will have to take chance and then promote these startup promoters so that they are able to build something which can compete globally tomorrow for us.
Wonderful. Sounds great, Bithal. And what you talked upon, bringing ideas into realities and adoption really helps out over there. So thank you for getting that off. And that's the first one which I wanted to get going with the entire CISO community. But let's move forward to Rajiv. Again, similar viewpoint, Rajiv. How are you seeing startups becoming such an important integral element of what we are doing as CISOs today? And do you see, as we heard just from Bithal, providing them an opportunity to create the right value? Or also you see that they are coming in and disrupting the way we have been thinking in past, and that's creating another dimension of the value being created. So Rajiv, over to you.
Yeah, so thanks, CyberFrat team, and good morning to Atulji and all other panelists. We in ISRO, we see startups as an important part of this ecosystem, because our requirements are quite different from the way standard industry operates. So the way our architectures are designed in the industry, we are quite different. We have some isolated networks, we have air-gapped networks, and we find issues with many of the standard tools. So there startups come in because they are agile, they are willing to build products or customize their products based on our requirements. So we see a lot of value creation for us by startups. And that is why we have been using startups in that sense. And as Mr. Bithal said, that we need to promote them. But there are other issues which we will take it up in the next round of discussion. Startups are able to create products based on our requirements, and they are quite supportive. We find issues when we have products from the Western world and so-called best of the breed products, because the way our support requirements are, we don't give remote access to them and things like that, whereas startups or Indian companies are able to do much better there. So I will start with this and maybe we'll take it up later.
Thank you. Thank you. And you're right, Rajiv. You bring a very, very different perspective to this entire topic. And as much as we believe networks which were isolated were protected from what's happening in the cyber world, those myths have been busted. And that's where you talked upon how the agility plays a very important role. So wonderful. Great to hear those starting point of views. Maybe let me invite at this moment Pawan also. Pawan, you want to come in and talk upon your perspective again from the value creation and the disruption which you are witnessing and how you are able to adopt in your enterprises also.
Sure. Thanks, Atul. Thanks. And it's a very interesting topic to be talked about, and it's a need of the hour, I would say, because there are many startups which are coming up. But before we jump onto the topic, I would like to make a disclaimer that all the views are my personal views, not to be considered as an organizational view. In the past as well, I have worked in a startup which is a global organization now, backed up by one of the biggest CEO in the cybersecurity industry, which is John Chamber. I would not name the product because that I don't. We are not here to promote the product, but the value creation which that has brought in the industry is making a difference today. The way we look at it, we need to. I have been a mentor for MITY for the cybersecurity community. Have mentored a couple of organizations in last 3 years, and who are now making difference in the cybersecurity industries as well, in the industry as well. And they have been working with big names, have created value there. So it's an interesting time. We see them as a value creator and disturber both. When as a CISO, when we look at it, we need to first give them an opportunity. From thought, now they have come up with various products which could make a difference. Have moved from the legacy technologies to the new technologies, or the way of the way they look at it as a problem statement is different from the way we look at it while sitting in the organization. There is innovation which has been brought in, and that innovation need to be cultivated to be nurtured for future. There are specialization which have been brought in. So even if you take at risk management, you look at vulnerability management, you look at attack surface management, there are different ways to look at it. The way they have now curated the product is basis the need of the organization, which was missing earlier. Now the established vendors are catching it up and trying to bring up their product to that level as well. Another important piece which they have brought in when we look at the value creator is the agility. They are easy to adopt, and they can the turnaround time of onboarding those technologies are much faster. It doesn't take that long to adopt that. The APIs, the integrations are handily available because they have understood the pain organization faces when they implement certain things, and those are the things have been covered up now. The fourth important piece is the cost efficiency they bring in, because they want to bring a value. It's not that they want to be in a loss. They definitely come up with a cost proposition. Also, the fifth piece is the collaborative opportunities which are there. So by giving them opportunities, you can bring in a collaborative way to establish them. They could be disruptors as well. Now, there may be a challenge. What we need to look at it while evaluating them is the integration challenges. So we need to first analyze our own environment before we accept something to be integrated within the environment. So that's one piece we definitely need to look at. Another important challenge which we face with the new age startup is the stability and the longevity. They may have funds now. What about the future? They are there to serve the industry, but if they're not backed up properly, there may be challenges. The fourth is the third one is the future expansion or the future enhancements which they are going to bring in the product. That vision has to be there. Even they may not have today, but there has to be a roadmap which has to be clearly defined. The fourth piece is the support and documentation. I have experienced. I was using one of the product where the product was good, but they did not have proper documentation, which led us to later support challenges, and those should have been clearly documented and communicated to the organizations as well. Fifth piece is the security of the solution itself. I give you from my personal experience. I bought a product, I implemented the product. One thing which was missing was the security of the product itself. As a security professional, now we should definitely check that out, because startups focus on developing something but lack on the security of their own product itself. So that's one piece which needs to be looked at. The last piece is the vendor management, and that also need to be focused upon. So I've seen startups who come up very aggressive, who sells the product and then just vanish away. They don't build a relation or touch base with the organization where they have sold the product, and that's where the maturity of a vendor management program comes into the picture, and that's definitely need to be focused upon by the startups. So these are the value creators and disturbers I would like to share a view on.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Pawan, for sharing those thoughts. Very structured and very balanced. And I think your experience of being on the startup definitely brings a very unique dimension to it as well. And you referred upon John Chambers, and someone whom I also really admire on his ability at this age to do so much what he is doing. And it's a privilege to know him and work with him. But phenomenal. I think this very nicely leads us into the next segment, where I want to invite the startup folks, which is where I would like to Shomiron to come in, as well as my friend Prasanna to come in at this point of time. It's exciting morning. I know, Shomiron, you are not in the morning time zone. You are in a very different time zone, so maybe a great evening for you. But maybe whatever has been talked so far is music to all of you, both of you. To see the kind of a support which we are referring from the industry to the startups. But it's a time to get a reflection from both of you. And maybe I'll start with you, Shomiron. How have you seen this journey? What's been the response that you have been getting on adoption from the industry standpoint? It will be good to get those thoughts as
well. Well, I mean, to begin with, and thank you for the opportunity. And it's just wonderful to have be on the stage with all of you. I think it's been a very, very long journey, and we've seen a lot of change happen. And like Bithal said, they've got now a properly documented program where we are actually having an entry channel for startups to come in, right? And those didn't exist earlier. Obviously, those changes have happened. And now, of course, there is a lot that still needs to be done in terms of adopting products and technologies and having like a channel between the ecosystem and the startups, so that feedback goes both ways, and you are able to bring better capabilities up to market speed faster, right? So I think both of these changes have happened, which is, I mean, credit to both parties and everybody over here working as a fraternity. Some of the things that I would want, going forward, I would expect these changes to come through, and this is from the startup or the cybersecurity product industry perspective, right? Things like we see a lot of customers, and I'm specifically, I've experienced a lot of that because I'm in a tough segment which has 100 integrations, and it's not a point solution. So there are so many moving parts, and so therefore a lot of experiences have happened where we're learning from different angles and all of that. So one of the first things that have changed, I've seen that, is that you would not risk a startup by buying a startup technology because what if it goes corrupt or goes south. That has changed a lot. We've seen a lot of startups being adopted, and that's part of the work that CyberFrat is doing, that DSI is doing, is bringing more startups to the table and presenting them to the customers, and opportunities therefore get created. One of the things that we would want is more participation, right? So for instance, sometimes I see this a lot is when a customer buys a product, or typically a local product or Indian product, and you don't pay a lot of money for that. It's usually cheaper, and the price advantage is always there. Customers actually don't treat you with the same amount of value that you would actually have treated a Microsoft or let's say a Palo Alto that you would have bought at 3 times the price. I think both these stories, everything, all the heavy lifting is expected to be done by the product company. I think I would really want to see that maturity come to this industry, where when we are adopting a product, we actually earmark effort from our side as well, and both sides, right? So that you actually have a successful outcome, right? So these are some things that I find a lot because this product is not heavy on our budget. The priorities in also effort being put in for a successful deployment or a successful outcome is very low. And obviously, startups are startups. They have lesser resources than the giants, and you will have buggy software. You will have software which doesn't have documentation. You will have software which is not secure. And if an organization is tying up with a startup, these are expected outcomes, and you will have to walk the journey to make sure that we get better over time. We've seen that happen to us, and all we want to do is to make sure that people who are starting up don't have it so difficult, right, going forward. So few things, right? So just more patience, right? And obviously, some Bithal and the other panelists have actually created a proper framework so framework will definitely work, more patience, and also equal collaboration, right? So these are the 2-3 things that I would want to bring to the table.
Wonderful. Thank you, Shomiron. Thanks for bringing a different perspective. We were listening so many good things about startups, but you bringing some reality to the table out here. And I think somebody is referring upon saying, how do you go ahead with a leap of faith? And it's a journey which we need to go together. That's where we mean by collaboration and bringing trust. We are in the journey together. There will be places where we may not know the answers right up ahead, but we'll together support it. Yeah. Wonderful. Okay. So on that point, Prasanna, you want to come in and share your thoughts on the same viewpoint? Prasanna, I hope you can hear us.
Yeah, so there was a little delay. So yeah, I think wonderful. I think the way startup ecosystem in India is created in this banking and finance perspective. The way I started my journey with at least, I have now around 15 startups along with me, where I'm a founder or investor. It's a wonderful journey for us, and the way ecosystem. If I start from regulator perspective, the way the various guidelines and various sandbox supports that's coming. If you talk about RBI itself has started their own fintech unit to spearhead the fintech ecosystem or a startup ecosystem, and they must have done around 6 to 7 cohorts around. So I think these cohorts are really helpful, and RBI now has its own sandbox. It helps us to really try out our ideas. A couple of them we are already working with the Reserve Bank of India. So that kind of a support is coming from a regulator with lots of interactions. It's a very encouraging. At the same time, we are working with IFSCA, where some of those upcoming models on asset tokenization or something relevant to the tokenization work which is happening with among top-end banks. So that kind of encouragement is coming from IFSC also for startups. Imagine you get a support from IFSC and you can use that particular brand across the globe, as you are one of those regulated startups in the any of those ecosystem which you want to do. So I think regulator is really doing good job on that front on startups. On investment per se, while we have seen a good surge of investment in 2021 for fintechs and startups, and it has gone down in 22 early days because of many reasons in the US or SVB reason and many others. But for a very good startup idea, we at FSV Capital, we are supporting at least 18 startups in many capacities, raising investment from 1 to 10 million, or we are supporting for their growth market. So like FSV Capital, we are there. There are other capitals we are partnering. So I think for any startups, maybe many of us will be listening to us here. If somebody has a very good idea, out of box idea, and if they are really willing to fund, I think we are here and we have a very good ecosystem where we can help. So today, people may say funding has gone down. No, it has not gone down. For a good idea, for a good startup with a good roadmap, good mentors, I think it's really a beautiful journey and investment is available. Third aspect around mentoring. I think the way we have seen availability of mentors back in 2014 and 2024, it's a tremendous growth. And these mentors, and you can see hundreds of them on this floor also with CF100. But apart from cybersecurity, you talk about technology, you talk about any of those functional models also. So at India Blockchain Forum, which I drive, we have around 40 to 50 mentors who are always ready. And on a regular basis, we review what's really happening in the ecosystem, where they can go and really promote and help. I think for any startup growth, it's very, very important to have a very good advisors and mentors. So I think that way, mentor ecosystem in India, if you talk about meeting, they have created their mentor ecosystem, right? And they have created Atul Incubation Center. So I think that's a wow impact for us. A fourth angle, which is acceleration, as well as you talk about incubation kind of a support. Look at NPCI or Broadery. So at a financial perspective, the large companies are now creating those kind of ecosystem which we can lead the various good growth. So I think last 6 months in this year itself, I've been part of at least 15 cohorts as a jury, or so that way, while you may say it's not happening, every state has its own company who drives that innovation for startups. In Karnataka, we have KDM or Maha IT is there, or KSM is there in Kerala, or you have seen how Telangana government or how Andhra government is really picking up. We have a blockchain center of excellence for startups in Rajasthan, which is coming up, or in Orissa. So I think all the tech-led institutes in the government, they are creating that kind of a momentum for startups. So if you look at all these pillars, plus academia, right, where we have created some kind of courses, like how startups or a fintech can come and be part of those courses and understand the economics, financials, how to grow, are they in the right direction. So even academia institutes are creating these kind of courses for startup. They are encouraging students to become a startup during the curriculum itself. Apart from internship, which is the way forward mechanism, I have seen the startups coming in from IITs, IIMs. So I think at all levels, Atulji, I could see huge momentum. I think while there are some smaller countries like Israel or Singapore, they say they are startup countries, but at India scale, the way the complexity is there, we could see in future of work will be led by startups, while there are corporate companies doing their jobs. So I think Indian strategy, and even in budget side also, you will see almost for SMEs, MNC startups, how they are supporting. Yeah. So I'll stop here. In a nutshell, I think we are on a very good direction.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Prasanna, for talking through. And you're right. The ecosystem which is there, many times there is a perception it's not very strong, but you talked upon regulatory, state governments, center of excellence being created. And I think that support is coming through. It's all about how economical activity then supports it. And so on incubation, which is from an idea generation to idea being commercialized. But I think the key point is how does idea commercialization and monetization is happening around it is where we need to work through. And I think that's what you were referring upon when you mentioned about what some of the other countries are known. Maybe you referred Israel, Singapore, and how good can India be there? Absolutely. The right building blocks are in place. We can take forward from where we are in this moment. Okay, wonderful. I think we will step forward on our conversation. We have got two very good perspectives. We've got from practitioners a viewpoint. We have also got from the startup providers a perspective on saying how has this evolved upon. Maybe let me bring again a dimension from an industry perspective, and then we'll reflect back with startups. And let me go back to Rajiv ji. Rajiv ji, you talked upon on the agility and the support which you are able to get from startup. Now, I think the one question which comes upon is, are the startups helping us solve the problems which are now and here? Or are the startups coming across with innovative ideas which are looking slightly forward ahead as well? And the reason why we are getting into that element is to say that, hey, how sustainable those startups are, because if it's more now and here, then the innovation is required quite repeatedly because it will be stale very quickly. But if it's more new age thinking, then the startups could be creating more value. So Rajiv ji, your thoughts?
Yeah. So yeah, before I come to that, I'll just continue on what you said, that myth is busted about isolated networks. It is not only busted now, it's busted long back. And it is very clear that isolation alone doesn't provide security. But then there are some compliance requirements, and it does help, provided one doesn't assume that isolation will be providing the security alone. So that is to continue what you ended there after my talk. And now, yes, so startups definitely are able to come up with innovative ideas, and they have products which they are offering with innovative ideas. But the issue is, are we willing to trust them? Are we willing to take the bet? And so there is this concern of a proven product versus a product which claims to be innovative, but as one panelist earlier also said, that we have to provide them platform. Unless there is a big name, they have got an order, they cannot be able to sell others. But that is where the issue comes. We are not able to take a bet on them that what innovative ideas they are claiming will really work in the field. So this is a specific answer to what you said. But then there are other issues which I said that I'll be taking up maybe in the next round. Is that it's my own experience that we have in fact had a product from a startup, got it installed, and one of the panelists said that we have to also give time. We have to allocate time for startups. We should not say that since it's a lower cost product, we don't provide time. So we had put that huge amount of time, effort from startup as well as from our side. But what we see is that within a month of installation, the startup is acquired by a US company. It's an Indian startup. And we worked with them in an area which was very sensitive. And of course, the requirement was it has to be a indigenous company, Indian company with all the data in India and things like that. And then we later realized that the startup was working with a sole aim of getting orders to get acquired. So this is a very big concern. And after that, we are very, very careful. Now, another point of innovative approach is that we are also working with some startups where we take open source software as a base and build a product customized for our requirements. As I said, we have some of the unique requirements which may not be there in the industry. And that has been working very, very successfully. Two reasons for this. One is that you have base, of course, you have to honor the open source licensing regime, whatever it is, GPL or, and then you are able to get the product in shorter time, and the support, community support is also available on the base product. Of course, then you create a layer over it and you add playbooks and things like that. So this approach is working very well for us, and we have been leveraging this very successfully in recent past. I think that's all from me. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Rajiv ji. I think you raised 2 points which have also emerged, but I think you brought in a very unique dimension. The first one you said is innovation which startups are bringing, but how much do we have trust in adopting those innovation? Because are we the ones who want to expose ourselves? Maybe Bithal talked upon how that's happening, but yeah, you're right. And I think the second one which you brought upon is national security agenda versus maybe what I called out right up ahead, the economic ambitions of startups. How do you bring a balance between both of them? And there could be those areas where there could be hard edges which may come across and conflicts would emerge upon. But thank you, Rajiv ji, for making those points.
Just one thing,
Sure.
I need to disconnect.
Yeah.
Sorry, I have to leave now.
Okay.
And thank you all, and sorry for leaving early. Thank you.
Thank you, Rajiv ji. Maybe on that note, since Rajiv ji brought upon, let me bring in some of these dilemmas which come across, and maybe we can go to Bithal and Pawan also to get a perspective. Saying we just heard upon from Rajiv ji saying what kind of dilemmas are there which comes across to industry at this moment, saying when we adopt upon startups. So Bithal, I know you talked upon assign, but good to hear your thoughts also.
I think what Rajiv ji mentioned about company getting acquired. Now let's understand that if there is a startup has been built, established not to solve the world's hunger problem, but to become big, successful, and financial independence and growth will always be the key for any startup for that matter. And that's what you need for that startup to actually take the global footprint. Now, the way we look at these startups, so we tend to go after startups in a pretty early stage, and I call them it's more of a dough stage where the bread is not baked, right? So we work with them to bake that bread to the shape and size and the volume what we need, right? So when you have that kind of a relationship, obviously you will bake in the right controls, right protections, either contractually, either from a legal standpoint as you're working with them. So when we are working with any startup, we are not going after the product, really. We're going after the people who have been able to take a step and go in that direction to solve that problem. We usually stay away from the companies who are hell-bent on selling whatever they have built, because so they are so bought with what they have built, it's difficult to essentially, it defeats the whole purpose. So we go after the startup founders where we can see that passion, we can see the sincerity, and we know that, well, let's take an example. If I'm talking about identity management, well, this team, I will have maybe 5 guys working on that from operations standpoint, but when it comes to the building a solution, a technology for that, this startup founder and his or her team will bring in that capability. So it becomes as extended team for us. And it's a runway you give with them. So you obviously do it with the rail guards so that it doesn't impact your posture. But the same helps you build a solution which not only helps solve your own problem, but also gives a mature product to the startup who can then take it out in the market in a big way as well. So more than the product, it's the people who actually are building or have built the product because they have a head start in solving that problem for you. So again, we go for dough and not for the bread.
Very well said. Just go back to looking at where you get those right behaviors, right skill sets, rather than just going for the outcomes. If the process is right, the outcome has to be right. And work with them, co-create, and in the process, you will get outcomes with the rail cards being established. Very well said, Bithal. I know we will start getting into the final few minutes of what's been allocated to us, but maybe here is an opportunity for me to go back to Pawan as well. And Pawan, you talked upon your experience of being on both sides now. Any of these dilemmas which you are getting to see before I open up to Prasanna and Shomiron?
Absolutely, Atul, because I've seen both sides of it. So I would like to put some recommendations here while evaluating a startup, which will help others as well to consider before such technologies are being adopted. So when we look at it, so security startups build product considering with a mindset that they are going to break in, they're bringing a revolutionary product, but those has to marry with the requirement of each and every organization as well. So the first point which needs to be factored is the security and the compliance. Security from the organization perspective and the compliance from the regulatory perspective. Most of the organization in India are regulatory driven, and those factors have to be considered before even a product has been built or a thought of a building a product come into the picture, because startup has to keep in mind the industry they are going to target to sell that product. From the CISO perspective, it is very important that you evaluate the product, and you should not bring in a technology which has vulnerable and will open further gates for other vendors to other hackers to step in. The last piece in the security and compliance is the risk management needs to be done very thoroughly. You need to look at the background. You need to look at the people associated with it. What Bithal has also talked about, I completely agree with that. And the background has to be clear for all the stakeholders in the organization, whether it is advisor, whether it is investors or the founders themselves. Second piece is the integration and the compatibility of the product. I spoke about it in the first section as well. The existing infrastructure need to be looked at. The scalability of the product need to be looked at. API integration and the extensibility of the product has to be looked at. It has to meet your requirement first, then considering that what they have, which even may not meeting your requirement. The feasibility need to be done. Bithal also talked about, and Rajiv, I completely agree, talked about the vendor stability and support, where the startups only look at big names so that they can sell it to their investors, which should not be the case. Fortunately, I've seen organizations who have been approached by a big organization for acquisition, but they denied that because they wanted to focus on their product and they trusted their product, which could make a change in the industry. And I have adopted those products as well. So that's something which needs to be looked at. Wonderful. Innovation and the differentiation has to be looked at as well. Not one product fits every organization. So even the innovative idea is very good, but you need to look at the adaptability within your organization and the fitment in your organization. Not necessarily somebody has adopted it and it may fit in on your organization. With the existing technology, existing infrastructure, those things needs to be looked at. Another important thing is take a customer feedback and the reference check as well. Look at the case studies, how it has been deployed, because that gives you a clear picture that where the product stands and how it needs to be adopted.
Sure.
The cost and the ROI comes the second and one of the key aspect as well. So you need to look at. I have two more points, Rajiv, before I pass it on to you. Is I also talked about the strategic fit, which needs to be looked at, and that's a key area which needs to be fit in. The product has to fit in that particular area. I remember a couple of years back, I was approached by a founder, and he was very keen. His product is good, and he is making a change. But at that point in time, that product was not fit in the organization, and I did not adopted that particular product. I wanted to call it out because people generally feel, and startups generally get demotivated when their product is not adopted. They feel that it is a key changer. It may be a key changer in the industry, but may not be a right fit for the organization at that right moment. So please don't feel demotivated. The time will definitely come, and because the industry is changing so fast, the organization will mature and will come at a time where they may require your product as well. The last thing is the implementation and adoption I talked about. You need to evaluate it thoroughly before implementing it, whether it is a right fit in the organization or not. Right. If it is a right fit, then only adopt it. Otherwise, it will just be a waste of each other's time rather than money.
Wonderful, Pawan. Great insights. I think you did talk upon saying how much can startups also look at what their ethos is. Are they focused on product or are they focused on investment? And globally, the world is talking about an investment which didn't go through various reasons, but maybe somewhere stemming from that. And all the other points which you made very, very relevant. So thank you. Thank you for making those contributions. I know we are running completely out of time, but it will be extremely unfair for me if I don't give opportunity to Shomiron and Prasanna to come and share their thoughts. Shomiron, just a couple of minutes, 3 or 4 points which you want to make at this moment, and then Prasanna.
And this is going to be quick advice for startups, right? Like Pawan gave out a huge list of validations that our organization needs to do to onboard a startup. One thing that we all need to recognize is that startups is not for all organizations, right? Only organizations who are mature at a certain stage are able to take startups and actually benefit from them, right? So, and this is a concept that even startups need to recognize quickly. The quicker they understand that, the better they'll grow and the faster they'll grow. So, like you have specifications for as an organization to evaluate a startup should have specifications to evaluate an organization as a target customer, right? Because if the organization doesn't have the maturity to onboard a startup, you're going to waste time and you're never going to get a deal at the end of it, right? Or even the right kind of feedback. So I would say at a nascent stage, feedback is going to be more valuable than the money that flows in, but eventually the money has to come in for value to be created. So I think all startup founders need to sit down and think about how who their target customer is going to be, and which of these target customers actually have the bandwidth to invest in this program. I mean, I want to call it a program because it has to be a program, otherwise it doesn't actually fly. So I think that's a very key important thing that startups should consider building. When they're building their ICP, they want to actually think about what should be there in an organization. What are the key signals that you see? I mean, we would see. I've been in an industry that is driven by Gartner, and Gartner Magic Quadrant has been the biggest blocker for growth for us. Every CISO that puts a Gartner Magic Quadrant is also saying that I don't have the capability. Sorry, did I get dropped out? Okay. Every organization that puts out the MQ over there as a blocker is also saying that I don't have the capability to evaluate you as a startup, right? So that's also a signal, right? So there is nothing right or wrong in that. It's just that you make the best use of your time and make sure that you get a favorable result at the end. All right, pass. Thank you.
I think there's an indication we need to wrap up. But Prasanna, any closing points?
I think wonderful. I think our fellow panelists is being so knowledgeable in this conference, and thank you, Atul, also for moderating so well. Just 2 cents from my end. Like in India, I think startups are. I think there are a lot of knowledgeable startups being founded by same founder who was working in a bank or working in a corporate. So I think that kind of a maturity startups are now showing that apart from growth model, their go-to-market strategy, having good advisors and having good problem statement to solve. I think what I'm seeing, if you look at a national perspective, look at some of those, not to look at Me Too problem statements, look at something which is a outstanding problem statement, the problem statement which is coming up and will give a lot of mileage to grow the business. And assess that problem statement in a strategy that, as Shomin has rightly said, immediately fail fast, and go to the next level. I think at all levels, startups, academia, corporates, banks, regulators are looking at the same synergy. What is that? Rather unicorn, the value con, right? What is that value a particular startup? Because today's startup may be a startup, but the way we have seen, at least I can name at least 40 companies who has been startup 5 years back. Now they are the logos, right? Bigger logos, sponsoring bigger events, right? So I think that shows their growth. But growth should be at a value. What is the ecosystem? Yeah. So I think that was for all of us. So I think thank you so much for this panel.
Yeah, that was not me, just in case anyone felt. But Prasanna, you made a great point. I didn't want to use the word you used, Me Too. it's not a Me Too moment. It's about value creation moment. And I think that's what everyone is looking upon. But let me wrap this up. Thank you, everyone. It's been incredible. It's been my privilege to moderate this panel where I've got distinguished panelists, Bithal, Pawan, Prasanna, Shomiron, and obviously Rajiv ji, who had to drop off. Very, very valuable inputs on a great day to start off this entire session. It's going to go a long way, both from industry standpoint as well as from a startup standpoint. So thank you so much. And with that note, giving it back to the organizers and the MCs.